Hey Annie, what's going on? Rob Cesternino. How are you today, Annie?
I'm so good, Rob. I had such a blast in this whole experience. So I'm feeling really good today. I really
Good.
am.
I'm happy to hear you say that because I had been a little concerned because I felt like that when maybe you saw the episode, it seemed like that your tribe wasn't necessarily loving, to borrow a word from the Red Tribe, the vibe that you had for this game. So, what was that like for you to see all that?
It's hard. You can't not watch people talk nasty about you and not have it hurt a little bit. But I also know that's the game. And that was, day 3 or 4 of getting to know a bunch of strangers. We lost from go. And so it was knives out from the minute we hit the island. And so I think everybody is looking at each other with a little bit of a different lens than they would out in the real world. So yeah, it's hard to hear them call me a Karen and bossy and roll their eyes at everything I'm trying to do to help the tribe, which is ultimately what I was trying to do. But it was sort of misperceived. So it was hard, but I also know it's just a game, and those guys don't feel like that in the real world. We're gonna be fine.
And I feel like that's already part of your story from learning about you in the preseason, where you talked about how when you started taking up music, that there were a lot of people who had comments about you as a musician. And I feel like that's already embodied in your spirit of being Trashy Annie.
It's true. And I will say I have a lot of faults, but one of the things I view as a strength is I am very authentic to myself. And I went onto that island and I was me. I didn't put on a different face. I tried, yeah, I was perceived as bossy, but you know what? It came from such a place of love. I was trying to help the tribe. It's like, how can I help us find better coconuts so that we can eat? How can I build a shelter? What can I do to help? And so even though it was perceived as bossy, I know myself and I know what it was meant with so much love. And so it's okay. I was me and me didn't work out there this time, and that's okay. Different tribe, different season, maybe it would have been fine. This one,
Listen, I think that you're able to embody the boss and also being a rocker. It works for Springsteen. Am I right?
yeah, yeah, right.
Okay. Let's talk about that tribal council because I'd love to know from your perspective, what were you expecting to happen at that tribal council where you went home?
Well, I definitely was blindsided. I didn't think I was going home. I really thought that I knew what was going on. I thought my relationship with Alex was super strong. I love that guy. I was like, we got something. We're doing this. I didn't recognize how the other dynamics that were going on especially between Jake and Sophie, and how Alex kind of had to go with that. Otherwise, I think that it would have ended up splitting things, and we would have been on the wrong side of the vote. So I do think his hand was a little bit forced. But I thought Sophie was going home because it was so clear that on that challenge, she was a weak link for us. And she's strong in other areas for sure. She's very socially adept. She's good in a lot of things. But that challenge, and she'll be the first to tell you that the physical side is not her biggest strength. And so when we had 7 or 8 minute lead, and then she and Alex lost that puzzle, I thought surely this tribe is going to understand that we have to cut out the weak link so we can eat, because we have to win a challenge. So I thought Sophie was going to go home that night. And so that was the surprise for me.
So, from our perspective, we know Alex is wrestling with playing the idol on you. Now that you have all of the information, do you feel like, does it hurt at all that he didn't play his idol for you, knowing that everybody already knew he had an idol?
I don't think one, I would have never asked him to play it because he did say, if you get even a sniff that you might go home, you tell me and I'll play it for you. I would have never asked him to do that. If he chose to do it on his own, that's an awesome, amazing thing, but I wouldn't have asked. And it didn't hurt me that he didn't play it for me because I think in hindsight, he did what he had to do. I really do. He was saving himself that night, and that's what everybody in Survivor has to do. And I think we would have had a great alliance had we done what we kind of agreed to. But I think we both saw Jake and Sophie and how strong that was. And Sophie kind of had Jeremiah in her pocket. So that would have left the two of us on the outs no matter how you play it. So I think he had to go with them. I wouldn't have expected him to play the idol on me, because then it would have just it might have been him that night. So I think it was the right move.
So, based off of everything that we saw, it seems like that you and Alex are very close, correct?
I think so. I really like that guy. I really don't have hard feelings about anybody on the island, regardless of what
No,
the
I
episode
get that.
last night. I don't.
Okay, so could you talk us through from last week's episode? It seemed to us at home that when you're talking to Sophie about a plan, about, hey, we could vote out Nicole, but listen, I'm going to be next if we end up doing that. So why don't we split up the guys? And it sounded like that you were pitching to Sophie to vote out Alex. Is that right?
So I was really pitching to vote out Jake, but I had to throw Alex's name in the hat because otherwise it would have blown the cover that we were working together. Because my strategy to going into it was to find that one person I feel like I could align with and then never talk to them again until it's time to vote together because we didn't want anybody to sniff that out. So we had decided that was going to be our plan. Like, hey, let's meet like once a day and just confirm that everything's good and talk about who we're going to vote for, but then split up. And so when I was talking to Sophie, had I only said Jake, it certainly could have sniffed out that Alex and I maybe were doing something together. So I had to put his name. I would have never written his name down ever. And I told him I was going to do that. I said, I'm going to say your name. That is not even on the table. So didn't
Do
work
you
out.
feel like that he worked to keep the vote off of you at the first tribal council and keep it on Nicole?
I don't think so because he may have, but the five of us had decided on Nicole and we actually created me as a decoy. So some of those edits where they show me wandering off by myself and looking like that Survivor 101 thing that you never do, which is just
Hmm.
wander off. I really wasn't doing that and being an idiot. One, I was either trying to build a shelter, which I spent all day the first day doing, or I was doing what we had decided on as a five piece, which was let's make Nicole feel comfortable. Everybody kind of hang with her throughout the day and make her feel like she's in on the right side of the vote. Let's isolate Annie because she's the decoy. We've all decided it. And that way Nicole will think, oh yeah, Annie's definitely on the block and not play her shot in the dark. So there was kind of a group effort in making me isolated. I don't think I was ever really on the chopping block for week one. I don't think.
Really came up a lot about the conditions and how bad it was. And I know that you've done all of these races and things in the past. So can you just tell us, for you, how bad were these conditions that we saw?
I loved them. I loved it out there. I loved the heat. I loved it all. I was totally fine with that stuff. I don't like being cold. Had it been a cold season, I would have struggled a heck of a lot more. The heat, I have a high heat tolerance. I mean, I'll go run when it's 115 degrees in Phoenix, it's like the best day of my life. So the heat for me wasn't so bad. The dehydration that comes with it is tough. And then the fact that we hadn't eaten for, three,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 days, whatever it was, by the time we got to that final challenge where I got the boot. So that part was tough. I think the nutrition piece was harder to suffer through than the heat for me.
Annie, how do you respond to the charge that you drank all the tribe's coconuts?
Such BS. I was laughing so hard at that whole edit because that was not at all what happened. And also the coconut thing was funny because my tribe mates were talking all about how bossy I was about telling them what kind of coconuts to get and stuff. I realized I hadn't talked to them the fact that yeah, I'm a musician and that's what I went onto the island, presenting, but I'm also a doctor. I also have a biomechanics analysis company. I understand the human body very well. So all I was trying to do was say, hey guys, let's find the ones with the juice in them because that has potassium and that'll help us, with our hydration. And they just viewed it as like, oh, Annie's telling us what to do again. And it's so funny because they cut to that scene of me drinking a coconut. We all shared the coconut so equally, like kind of to a ridiculous level. We all
Mhm.
like poured our own little thing, like, okay, do we all have the even amounts? I even gave mine away a couple of times. I was like, Jake, you're bigger, you need it. So that was an edit.
Okay. All right. Speaking of Jake, we saw that Jake targeted you this episode as the shoe bandit. Now that you've seen all of that, what's your reaction to the shoe bandit capers going on in your tribe?
I mean, I'm actually perfectly at peace with that because I know now that it was a person and not an animal. Because I was sleeping in the shelter by myself at night while they were down on the beach because I was cold down there. So I would go up top. And something was nibbling on my foot at night. And so I was convinced that there was some kind of an animal that's carrying our shoes all around camp, which gets real creepy. So now that I find out it was just Jake throwing people's shoes around, I'm like, oh, okay, good. That's better than the alternative.
Yeah. So how long did you spend looking for your shoe?
My shoes were pretty easy to find. Other people's shoes were further away, and so mine I found it for pretty quickly the next morning.
But was there discussion in the tribe about like, hey, what is happening with our shoes? Is somebody doing this?
Oh, 100%. But everybody kind of was convinced that it wasn't a person because who would do that? We thought, well, maybe I don't know. We just all I think convinced ourselves it was some kind of small animal and tried not to think about how big an animal would have to be to carry a shoe around camp.
Yeah. But did you think it was funny because the tribe is losing, you have no energy, it's bad conditions, everybody's going around looking for shoes.
I
Is it
actually really didn't care. I was like, okay, my shoe's over there. I spent 3 minutes finding my shoe. Let's get back to business, But that was also
Mhm.
probably why like Annie's so bossy. She doesn't even care that our shoes are disappearing. It's probably her doing it.
Yeah. Now, were you aware of the group idol hunt that was going on in the episode prior to Alex
No.
telling you that he had the idol?
No, I didn't know that that was happening. I can't remember where my headspace was at that point. I think that I was of the mindset that we had decided we're the votes on Sophie, Jake and Alex and I had talked around the water well, and that was the conversation. And so I thought we were good. So some of my strategy through this thing wasn't to isolate myself from hey, I just want to be off over here looking for an idol or whatever they want to say, but sometimes using me as sort of the decoy like we did on the Nick vote was helpful, and so I think that was part of what Alex and I had kind of talked about a little bit. So no, I didn't know they were off idol hunting, but I also highly misjudged how close that foursome was, so that's on me.
What do you wish we would have seen about your game from these two episodes of Survivor?
I wish that they didn't show a lot of the physical stuff that I feel like I contributed, or I know I contributed. Like I said, I spent the whole first day making a shelter because I've seen so many seasons of this where it's just dumping on people in the middle of the night and they're miserable and they can't compete the next day and they can't make fire and all this. I was like, I can contribute by making us a shelter. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I will just keep working until I get it figured out. And so it was cut in a way that really didn't do justice to all of that, in my opinion. So it looked like I was weak and I was just wandering off by myself all the time. And so I think that was a very small part of that story. And so I wish some of that physical stuff would have been a little bit more portrayed a little bit more. But they have a lot of stuff to show. I understand.
Yeah. Looking back at how it all ended up going down, do you feel like that is there something that you wish that you would have changed about your game if you were going to play this over again?
Oh, 100%. I would have foregone the idea that physical contributions in camp matter almost entirely and probably would have stuck like glue to my tribe mates the entire time because I'm a CEO, I front a band, all these sports and things I do, Ironmans and all that, they're all solo endeavors. So I'm used to just kind of working as a lone wolf, and that does not work well on Survivor. I knew it was going to be a challenge. I didn't know it was going to be as big of a challenge as it was. So yeah, if I
Yeah.
were to play again, I would change that strategy for sure.
But I'm really trying to think about the dynamics of the group that you were in. And if you couldn't change any of that, I'm trying to think of what is there a configuration you could have put together that would have helped you get through this first portion of the game?
I don't know. I honestly don't know because Jake and Sophie were so close. The
Hmm.
configuration, now that being
And
said, Nick and I we didn't connect enough early on because I thought I had my alliances all set. Nick's a whole nother person that I didn't even explore the idea of having an alliance with, and maybe that could have changed something. Um, but I not misjudged how strong Sophie and Jake were, the Jake, Alex, me situation could have been pretty good because from a strength perspective, I'm pretty strong chick and they're strong guys and we probably could have gone far
yeah.
together, but
Okay.
like that.
Annie, should we expect any Survivor inspired music coming out of this?
Definitely. I
Okay.
think I got a whole EP in there. I
Wow.
it just you come back from something like this with a lot of head garbage. You start to question everything. Do people actually like me? Does everybody hate me and they just pretend like they do? Like there's so much goes through your head. And for me, I'm so fortunate to have music to be able to as an outlet. So yeah, I expect there's going to be some good stuff coming in the next year based on what I learned about myself in this experience.
Okay. All right. Annie, thank you so much for making this time and all the best outside of Survivor.
Thank you so much.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.